And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with the Game Boy Geek.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. The game of Clue has been around since 1949. You probably have at least one copy in your house, possibly on the bottom of your closet, collecting dust, maybe. But everyone has heard of it, everyone's played it, it's still in the stores all day. And today we're going to talk about a different version called Electronic Talking Clue, called Clue FX. Now, I know what you're going to think. Yeah, it's back to the electronic, gizmos and the electronic genre and the electronic gimmicks. Is this game really good? Well, it's from 2 to 4 players, and it's played electronically, but you're still hunting for clues. So let's go in and see how it's played, and then I'll tell you what I finally think about it. Okay, Clue FX. It is quite different from the regular Clue, so let's tell you how different it is. First, you can see this beautiful board with this big, tall 3D Tudor mansion. First thing you know is that in regular Clue, you're one of the suspects. You're, Mrs. White, Miss Scarlet, things like that. In this version of Clue, you're not one of the suspects. You're just one of the people that were in the house when the murder of Mr. Meadowbrook occurred. Instead of being a suspect, you're new people. Like you're probably either Mrs. Peach, or Prince Azure, or Lady Lavender, or Lord Grey. You get to pick one of those characters, and you're not a suspect in the game. Now, you do have the usual suspects. There's actually one added here. So the usual suspects in the game are Mr. Green, and a new one is Mrs. Meadowbrook, and then we have Rusty, and then we have Professor Plum. We also have Mrs. White, Miss Scarlet, Colonel Mustard, and Miss Peacock. So the two new people are Mrs. Meadowbrook and Rusty. Now, what you're trying to do here is obviously figure out the murder, but it's done with sort of an electronic talking version of Clue. So we've got the game set up. We've got one of each of the person, place, and thing, or the suspect weapon in place in the confidential envelope, just like regular Clue. Each one of these clue cards that has one of the clues on it, just like regular Clue, is placed into each one of these envelopes. So each one of these suspects has a clue. And then the rest of the cards are dealt out. These ones are face up because this might be me, and these ones are face down because they're the other players. Usually you'd hold them close and keep them secret, just like in regular Clue. Now notice also that you have these cool little player mats to hold your little clue suspect map over here. And this is what one might look like. And so, essentially, just like in regular Clue, you're trying to figure out what suspect did it, with what weapon, and where did it happen. Now let's take a look at the board and show you the different spots where you can go. Okay, now on the board, as we see here, up at the top there, we have Tudor Mansion. And to the left, we have the swimming pool. To the right of that, you have the garden. And here we have the gatehouse. We have the stable. We have the gazebo. We have the garage. Tennis court. And the boathouse. So as you can see, the game board is actually really beautiful. Okay, now one of the things you can see here against the regular Clue is there's no dice, there's no rolling, which makes it a lot quicker and, in my opinion, a lot more fun. You basically just take this character, let's say it was Miss Peace's turn, I want to go to the gatehouse. They're magnetic. So you'd put the magnet here and push down, and listen.
You see Miss Scarlet and Rusty at the gatehouse. Hello, dear. Evening, miss.
So it said I saw Miss Scarlet and Rusty in the gatehouse. So I get to look at both Rusty's clue. Of course, I would not show this to my opponent. I would keep it up close to myself. I see the garden, and I see Mr. Green. And so now, Garden and Mr. Green I know are not the killers because they're not in the confidential envelope. So I would essentially mark those off on my clue sheet that those two are not the killer. I would put those back and I would place them back where they went. And it would be, now at the end of the first part of your turn, Now, you can do one of two things after that. You can either make an accusation or you can search. If you search, you push the shrubbery here that says search on it. Listen.
You search and find no one. Rusty has left the gatehouse. And up things this idea.
So, a couple of things happened here. First of all, I didn't find anybody. Sometimes when you search, you'll find an additional person to get some more clues. Now, what they also said was that Rusty left the gatehouse. So you have to listen when it's not your turn, because now if Prince Azure, it's his turn, if he's going to the gatehouse thinking Rusty's there, well, he's not there. Now we know Rusty's gone. So let's go maybe to the tennis courts. Here's some tennis being played.
See Mr. Green at the tennis courts. Well, it's a pleasure making your acquaintance.
So they saw Mr. Green. So again, they would take Mr. Green's envelope. Ooh, it happens to be the tennis courts, which is kind of funny. He would mark off tennis courts. And then, instead of doing search, maybe they would do an accusation or a suggestion. Just like the old clue, where you would list a suspect, a weapon, and a place, and then the person to your left would have to, if they have that card, show you one of them, just like regular clue. If they show it to you, you mark it down, and then it's the next player's turn. If they don't have anything to show you, it goes to the next player clockwise. And if nobody can show it, usually it means you found one or more of the things. So doing the suggestion is just like regular clue, but the extra thing is that search function to look.
You search and find no one.
Well, this time I found no one too. So you go through that the whole time. So you're trading turns, you're going to different places, you're using these cool little magnetic places to push down, and essentially you're trying to find the clues, and once you have it, partway through the game, Inspector Brown will show up somewhere, and you have to listen, because you have to be in where Inspector Brown is to solve the mystery. So cool. So when you know who has done the murder, what weapon, and where it was, essentially you would find Inspector Brown, and you would push the final button, and it would ask you who it was, and you would say it, and you would look in here. If you're incorrect, you're out of the game. If you're correct, you win. And that's pretty much how you play Clue FX. Well, there's Clue FX. So why did I buy this game? I bought this game for one reason and one reason only. I love Clue. I love deduction games. I know most people hate the roll and move games. They take too long, things like that, too much randomization. Clue is a very good deduction game. You should be able to learn more on other people's turns or as much as on your own turn. So I love the deduction aspect of Clue, but you need 3 players to play the normal version of Clue, and I typically have 2-player games on a daily basis. So I bought this for one reason only, 2-player way of playing Clue. Now, how does it stack up to the normal Clue? Well, you only have 2 to 4 players. So Clue is played 3 to 6 players, so this is 2 to 4, so it's a little more limited range, but you can play it at 2. Which it plays very well at 2, it scales well to 4. Since there's no rolling and you're just moving from space to space, it goes faster. So that cuts out one of the major negatives that most people have with Clue. Now the other thing is, it does add a little bit of randomization because you're listening for clues, and it might say, oh, so-and-so is at the escape house. And so you've got to constantly be paying attention for clues that you might otherwise miss. Some people might like that. I didn't like it as much. I'd rather have the pure deduction of Clue, but being able to play it for 2 players. But it doesn't deter me so much that I don't want to play it. So when I'm in the mood for a deduction game and there's only 2 of us, Clue FX is a great game to pull out and play. Now, does it totally replace the old Clue? No, the rules are different enough that if you really love the deduction aspect of Clue, this is a little lighter on the deduction side, but you can play with 2 players. So it kind of scratches that same itch for deduction, just not as deep. But the good thing is you can play it with 2 players. So this has a space in my collection because it's a 2-player way variant of playing Clue that's still fun, that you can still get deduction. There's still a deduction involved. It's just not as thorough and as deep as the regular Clue game, but it's still great. So 2-player version of Clue, love it.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.